networks, or I should say network addresses, come in classes. And we have Class A addresses, Class B addresses, Class C addresses, Class D addresses, and Class E addresses. Now, when our founders of the Internet first started using IPv4, there were only, a dozen or so of these addresses needed. They never foresaw the Internet. It was just supposed to be a few universities and government installations, and that was going to be it. And so we never thought that we would need all of the IP addresses. So guess what we did? All of the Class E addresses were reserved for experimental purposes. All of the Class D addresses were reserved for something we call multicast. This is for when you want to address a large number of computers that you can address in varying locations, and we'll talk about what these addresses are in a little bit. Class A addresses are those that are for very large networks, and these are anything where the first octet starts with 0 to 127. 0 to 127. And by default, the subnet mask for these is 255.0.0.0, or you might think of it as a /8. So that you can see if we have an address in this range, and this is the subnet mask, we have a large number of host addresses that we can use. These would be given to very, very large companies, large universities, and so on in the original plan of the Internet. Class B addresses are those addresses that begin with 128 to 191. 128 to 191, 255.255.0.0 or /16. So these addresses would be given to medium-sized companies or government installations or whatever. By the way, you may notice already, if you remember our 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, you may notice something. 0 to 127 up to here, right? And then remember, if we start adding these, 128, 192, 224, 240, 248, 252, 254, 255. Okay, this is going to become important in a minute. Class C addresses, 192 to 223, multicasts 224 to 239, and then all the Class E's are 240 up through 255. This, by the way, Class C, 255.255.255.0 or /24. All right. If you'll notice here, 127, we're right up to this point. 128 to 199. So all of these from this point belong to Class, this is all Class A. Before that, Class B. Class C, 192 to 223. Class C's fit in there. The Class D's all fit in this range. And then the Class E all fit in this range. So this is the easy way to remember what these are, is because they correspond with these, what we normally think of now as subnet masks. So there we have it. These are the various classes. And today we don't use classful addresses. In other words, I can go 192.168.0.0. If this were a classful address, I would have to give it 255.255.255.0. But I don't necessarily do that. We don't necessarily follow this convention today. Today we use classless numbers, and so I can go 255.0.0.0, make it look like a Class A address, and that's perfectly valid to do. But there are times when you're working on certain problems or you're working on a certain network that you see a case where you don't know what you're working with, and in that case you have to look at the class to figure it out. In other words, you're not given a subnet mask and you have to figure it out based on the subnet mask. That does occur in some kinds of problems that you run into in the field or in tests today.